Brought to you by GTA, your island, your network.
On July 4th, 1984, Anthony Drenes murdered my daughter, Melissa, when he shot her in the neck during an argument. Tony was sentenced to life in prison with parole after 20 years.
Emotion hung from the voice of mother Patricia Kanata as she recounted the story of her daughter Melissa's death. Kanata said the man convicted of killing Melissa became eligible for parole back in 2005.
For the first time and 7 times since then, my family and I have followed his parole request. 7 times, my husband and I have had to relive the heart-wrenching loss of my daughters, and we listen to the testimonies over and over of how Tony murdered my daughter.
Kanata spoke out in support of Bill 93, proposed legislation introduced by Vice-Speaker Therese Terlaje that aims to improve parole processes for board members, but most especially for victims and families. Attorney Anita Areola said she supports the bill on behalf of her friend Jan Rubenstein, who was also violently murdered more than 20 years ago.
I have appeared before the Guam Parole Board for several years to argue against the parole application of Cesar Dizon, her killer.
Year after year, many of the victims are asked to recount painful memories during parole hearings and endure again the trauma that they experienced. This bill will provide some respite by ensuring that persons who are incarcerated for violent crimes and denied parole for 2 consecutive years will wait for 4 years from the date of the last parole denial for the next hearing.
Currently, parole hearings are held every year. The bill would also make it easier to hear cases, as it would reduce the number of parole board members and the number of members needed to form a quorum. But while it's a step in the right direction, people like Carlotta Leon Guerrero and Dan Swavely don't think it goes far enough.
4 years as the interval in between is not enough.
And please remember this: while violent offenders are waiting for their next opportunity to petition for parole, they continue to be afforded regular visits and other opportunities to socialize with their families. While those of us here today testifying in support of this bill on behalf of Jan Rubenstein, including her 3 daughters and 1 grandson, will never ever have the opportunity to see her again.
Several parole board members also spoke out in support of Bill 93, with Areola noting that discretionary parole is a privilege that has actually been abolished in 16 states.
Brought to you by GTA, your island, your network.